Today we're sitting down with Jim McFarland, better known as America's Cobbler, a social media sensation with nearly 3 million followers across TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. Jim's got more than just a talent for shoe repair. He's built a legacy that's bringing his family's 5-generation business to the global stage.
Jim's journey is a mix of craftsmanship, digital creativity, and old-school work ethic. But it's a story of transformation from a small-town cobbler to a viral icon that'll leave you inspired. The wisdom and heart he shares today are just as valuable as the shoes he restores. Let's dive into Jim's world and discover how he became an icon in his own right.
Jim McFarland?
Hey,
how are you doing today?
I am here.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate this opportunity. Thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast. We are super excited to talk with you.
Yeah, I mean, Jim, first of all, when Shaq was like, we're going to interview a cobbler, I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. And I went into your Instagram and I'm like, oh, whoa, like, you have a humongous following. Then I went on YouTube, TikTok, and I'm just like, this guy is blowing up. How can a cobbler be this iconic? I mean,
if you had told me this 10 years ago, this was going to happen 10 years ago, I'd have laughed. It's just like you are. I have no idea. I guess with social media now, people are finding out that there's a lot of interesting things out there to watch, and you get a particular type of person that just, loves the sounds, loves just to watch craftsmanship. Mm-hmm. And I watch a guy that takes old toy cars and trucks and rebuilds them, and I find that fascinating. So it's just a lot of cool stuff out there.
Very interesting. So I guess this seems like, is this a family business, first of all?
Yes, since about 1900.
Okay. So this has been going for a while now. So where did you learn this craft from?
Well, I grew up in it, as my dad did. And just when you grow up in it, it's like asking you, when did you learn to speak English? I mean, you have no idea. 3 years old, you're probably speaking and talking really good. And it's kind of like that when you're growing up in this. You're staying around, you're watching everybody. I didn't really pick up. I mean, my dad would give me stuff to do to just keep me out of the way when I was a kid. But when I eventually got to about 15 years old, I just picked up shoes and just started doing them. I just came in one day and said, I can do this, and just did them because I watched it over and over and over and over. And a lot of people don't realize how much they've learned by just watching for so long. So I've been in here full time for 41 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So since around 1900, that's how many generations?
We're now with, my nephew and son, 5. They're the 5th. I'm the 4th generation.
So take us back a little bit. I'm curious about this because, first of all, cobbler is not a common term we hear nowadays.
No.
It's something that you think, oh, back in the old days.
Yeah.
Right? And here we are today, and we're in this amazing space that you have here. But it began in 1900. So tell us a little bit about that.
Well, around 1900, and I actually just found out this information about a year ago. I knew my grandfather had his own shop around 1918. I was always wondering, where did he learn this trade from? He had to learn it from someone. And I assumed in his hometown, there was a shoe repair shop called Smith's Shoe Repair Shop, and it was established in 1888. So I'm figuring, well, he probably learned there. I'm just guessing. And then I got a notification on one of the Ancestry type channels I subscribe to, and it said, you have a new family photo. And I'm like, I might as well. It's 7 in the morning. I've got nothing else to do. See what it is. And I see a picture of a guy staying in a shoe repair shop, and who is it? It's my grandmother's uncle. And I'm like, his name's Jacob High. And I'm like, okay, now that's interesting. And I'm digging around. I'm like, okay, he had a shop in Anderson, Indiana. That's where my grandfather was born. Digging around some more. And I mean, he married my grandmother. They were only 16 years old. But his dad died just about a month or 2 before he was born. So he was always in trouble and running the streets and just doing all my research. I've seen a lot of things that were interesting. But when he married my grandmother, her uncle was like, "You're not going to be on the streets. You're going to learn a trade." I called and talked to some of the relatives, on that side, and so I finally got the answer I was looking for. Where did he learn the trade? So it was my great uncle, great uncle that taught him. So.
Wow. Now, there's so much to talk about. I have so many questions about just the art of cobbling, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
And I want to start by, what are some of the tools, what are some of the practices that have carried on from those early days of cobbling to what you do today? Is there, like, where's that connection?
Well, a lot of the hand tools are actually still pretty close to the same. They haven't evolved much.
Wow.
A lot of the hand tools, the hand knives, if I showed you, I have some that go back 100 years. And if you looked at today's compared to 100 years ago, it's really not that big of a difference. Now, the machines have come a long ways. Some of the old machines in my dad's shop and down, they were old line finishers, and they had these little sandpaper wheels you had to work on. And since, I guess, maybe the mid to late 70s, they came out with a lot of what they call belt sanders, which is what we have in here now, which will increase your production quite a bit, a lot. So modern shops use those nowadays because you can put out 35-40% more work in a day. Yeah.
So as a cobbler, you're not so much a shoe maker, but a shoe restorer?
Yeah, a cobbler is actually, the real definition's a mender of shoes.
Okay.
So I've made a pair of shoes. I have a very good friend that he now has his shop in Pennsylvania. He's from Budapest. And I always wanted to make a pair. So a few years ago, I went to when he was in Savannah, Georgia, and I made my first pair. And it took me 3 days. I have them out in the front showroom out there. And I tell you, it's hard work. It's probably harder. It's harder to be a shoemaker than a shoe cobbler. A cobbler is, shoemakers and shoe cobblers have been around. It's probably one of the oldest trades in the world, besides the number one in the world, which I won't say what it is, but you can probably guess.
I'm like thinking.
Yeah. But anyway, it's an old trade. I mean, you got to figure they've been mending shoes since they've been making them, and how long have people been wearing shoes? So it's a very, very old trade.
Got it. So what I want to know, so I know why you're in this. I know it's it's a generational thing in your family. What's really the passion behind it for you, though?
That's a pretty, boy, me and my dad were really close. He was like the best friend I ever had in my life. And I lost him at an early age. I was I was 22. And I was just starting to make that change over from being a teenager into being a young man. And I started realizing that my dad, and he used to say this, one day you'll realize I'm not just your dad. I'm probably the best friend you'll ever have. Yeah. And I started seeing that turn when I was about 19, 20. And I enjoyed every minute with him. And I didn't want to be in this business. My grandfather died in it. My dad died in it. And I was in college. I didn't know what I wanted to do, really. I didn't want to do this. And then when he was getting sick, I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to drop my classes and go, because we had 3 locations at the time. So I want to go help him and, see what happens. But then, things changed, and then he wasn't here any longer. And I was like, wow, because he really put a lot of time and effort to build this store. And I didn't want to just close it up because he just put too much in it. And I was like, well, if I'm going to have to be a cobbler, I just don't want to be a common cobbler. And meaning that, I don't mean it in any negative way towards my fellow cobblers out there. It's just, I know a lot of them really appreciate and love their craft and what they do. They take a lot of pride in it. But a lot of them hate being there like I did. They don't want to be there. Probably 95% of them just want to go in, do the work. They don't want to be bothered by customers or anybody, and they just want to get the work done and go home. and the shops, tend to be pretty disorganized, and I just did not want to. I was like, I'm going to give it my best. And what's funny is we found a newspaper a few years ago, and it was a headline on the front page, and the headline was "No Common Cobbler," and I was like, "Wow, looky there!" Kind of got what I asked for. So.
Yeah, so I can imagine that a lot of your clients, they bring you shoes that they must care about because they're choosing to get them fixed or restored as opposed to getting new ones.
Yeah, it's really that's a great question, because there's a lot of people on social media that'll say. And when I see these comments, I just shake my head. I'm like, you just have no clue. They're like, I'll just throw them away, get a new pair. Well, there's a couple things behind that. One, those people making those comments have no idea that person paid $800 or more for those shoes, and they're getting them restored for, 10% of the price.
Mm-hmm.
Or that shoe has such a story behind it. It could have been their grandmothers, their moms, their dads, whatever, their brothers. I mean, I've got so much of that comes in here, where price and money isn't the factor. It's keeping that, that shoe, that memory. So many people come in that they swear their family member's shoe they've lost, and it just makes them feel close to them. How you put a price on that?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of value in both directions. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I know that you have a pair of shoes that you've been working on this week, you were telling me about earlier, and they're right next to you there.
Yeah, you want me to grab one?
Yeah, grab them. Tell us a little bit about that. That was really impacting. And I was like, wait, don't say it before the before the show.
Yeah, this gentleman here, back in 2001 on September 11th, he was only like 13 years old or so, and he just vowed that, okay, I want to be a military man. I want to be a career military man. And as soon as he was old enough, he signed and went in. And he was in Iraq, and a mortar hit right on the building, or right next to the building he was on. They were running some cable up there. Basically blew him off the building and injured him pretty bad. Had some brain damage and injury. And these boots were just, covered with, unfortunately, blood and everything. And but he didn't want to get rid of them because he loved being in the military, and he loves his fellow, military guys and soldiers, and he just he couldn't get rid of them. So his wife sent me an email and asked if there was anything we could possibly do. So I normally don't do too many of these, but this one had such an incredible story behind it, because she said if we could take these, and because he really loves his boots, he don't want to get rid of them, he wears them still, but he wants a fresh start. There's some really good things he's going to do in the future. But if we could give these boots a fresh start, I think he would see them and think, wow, you know what? I'm going to start off fresh. And we scrubbed them really good. We put new bottoms on them. And I actually had to go to Boca to a friend of mine that has a sandblaster and to really get the deep cleaning in on them. But they came out, if you saw the before pictures, you would be like, there's no way. I mean, they look like a World War II rusted out Army tank that's been sitting next to the beach for, since the 40s. They look really rough. So anyway, they're hopefully going to make him very, very happy when he opens these up for Christmas in 10 days. Yeah.
See, that's beautiful. Something like that is so beautiful because I don't think we really think about the story shoes can tell. I mean, they have thousands, millions of miles on them even.
Yeah.
And there's just so much we do with our shoes. So there's stories for people. And especially when I'm sure you have multiple stories like this, maybe
so
not
many.
To this extent, but what I would like to know is what is that process kind of from, like, how do you do what you do with those boots specifically as well, or any boots that have such a story behind them? What do you do to get them like this, back to this new point?
Well, you can't make every one of them like, I have to sometimes I'll just randomly send a story with it. And some of them are so touching and so moving that it's like, I'll just pick up the phone and call them. I've got to call this person and talk to them because this is really interesting. I'm starting to find out what a journalist feels like at times, that really wants to go down that rabbit hole, because I'll see something, I'm like, I'm going down that rabbit hole. And I'll call them and I'll talk to them for a while, and I'll really try to pull as much information out of them as I can, because I want to know every detail. Because we'll run a little bit of on our social media, we kind of call it kind of like a side gig. We'll call particular reels and TikToks the soul of a shoe, but we spell it SOUL, because meaning that this shoe, when you see this story, it's going to have a lot of special meaning behind it. It's just not going to be another shoe repair story. But some of the stuff that comes in literally makes you cry. It's very touching that someone cares so much for those shoes. One guy that's, he was on The Voice. He lost his brother and wears the same size, has his brother's shoes. And another guy that was opening up for the Smashing Pumpkins. I did his brother's shoes for him about a year or so ago, and sent them back to him. And little did I know, I get an email one Sunday morning that says, "I've left you 2 tickets at will call for the Smashing Pumpkins tonight. We're opening up for them." And I'm like, holy cow, the guy remembered, and it's because those shoes meant so much to him. Wow. And you just get story after story. A young man passed away, and his dad was so brokenhearted, wrote me a letter, and just you could just tell his soul was just shattered. I picked up the phone, I just called him right away, because I know how he felt, because I almost lost my son about 5 years ago, and he got E. coli from eating this hamburger here in town. I was just like, unbelievable. Wow. And so, in losing my dad, I know the heartache. And I called him up right away and said, we've got your son's boots here, and the story's really interesting. Can I do something with it? And we did, and I think it was around last Christmas. And he just, I think it did a lot for him. He was just so grateful and so happy to get his son's boots back. And we did everything we could to make them, go for hopefully another 10, 20 years. So, wow. Lots of good stuff.
With the level of, I guess, and we're going to get into that at some point here too, with the fame and notoriety you've gotten through your craft, through social media, through all these forms of media, you've really garnered some huge icons who have hired you to basically mend their shoes. I heard Shaq, not this Shaq, but Shaquille O'Neal.
I didn't repair his shoe.
You didn't? Okay, I heard something. So
No, but I'll show you. A friend of mine that was a shoemaker called me up one day, and he says, "You'll never guess who I'm making a pair of shoes for." And I said, "Who?" And he goes, "Shaquille O'Neal." I said, "You got to be kidding." I mean, I'd love to meet this guy. He's one of my favorite people to watch. He's so entertaining. I find him more entertaining now that he's retired from basketball, because he's just got something special. He's just wonderful to listen to and tell stories. And anyway, I said, "Have you sent him the shoes yet?" He goes, "No." And I said, the waiting list is like 12 to 14 weeks, something like that. And I shouldn't tell this story, because if Shaquille O'Neal gets mad because he didn't get the shoes soon enough, my address isn't going to be on this, right? So anyway, I said, "Send me the shoes, man." I said, in fact, I'll send one to a friend of mine up north, because we'll split them and make them another pair. But send me that exact pair. But anyway, I got the shoe, and it's a 22 and a half double E. Now, to see how really big this is, if you look at somebody's arm, you can go from my elbow all the way almost down to the tip of my finger.
Oh my goodness.
So, you were looking at this boot, and earlier it looked pretty big, but you can see next to it, it's not so big. But you know what? He's over 7 foot tall. So if he had small feet,
that wouldn't be a good thing.
would not be a good thing. No.
That's awesome.
No.
As we kind of transition into that side of things, like you've done some work for a lot of these big name people. Where does that come from? How did you get to where you are now?
Man,
How does this happen?
you know what's important, and I think this is what has really helped us in the long haul of things, especially in today's world. Go somewhere and find customer service. That's really, really hard to find. You'll go places, you go through a drive-through, whatever, they just shut the window. They don't even say thank you or goodbye or anything. Finding customer service is really hard. So we've always strived on that. And, you know, it'll drive my family kind of nuts because sometimes I'll be answering a question from a customer at 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And it's just like, they're like, what are you doing? You know, tomorrow, that's tomorrow's problem. And, you know, I get it, but it's kind of like my hobby anyway. I don't do anything. I love doing this. So I'm answering the questions, but it's like, I never thought, you know, I always felt customers coming in here were special, coming in, local customers. You know, there's some that aren't so special, but anyway, 99% of them are great. But I never thought customers that were mailing me their shoes would feel the same to me, you know, because I'm not meeting these people, but yet I'm talking to them on the phone. I'm reading their letters. And for me, it's like they're taking the time out to watch our content, put their shoes in a box and mail them to me. So these people are important. And we call them and we communicate with them, and we want them to have a great experience, even if it is a pair of shoes. We're going to give them the best we can as far as craftsmanship goes and the service. We just want to give them a great customer experience, even though it's just a shoe. And hopefully people out there will see, you know, this guy's just a shoe cobbler and he's giving great service. You know, other companies and other people should be concentrating on that too, you know, because that's what we're lacking in so many places today, I feel. You know, when I find a place that gives great customer service, I'll go back. If their product is just good and their customer service is amazing, they've got me. It is. But rather than a great product and then the customer service just really isn't there, I want the customer service.
Well, beyond that, though, I mean, still, we haven't even touched on how you've kind of amassed this following, because for people that are listening to this and may not know, you have almost, you know, where you're getting closer to 1 million followers on Instagram and 300,000 something on YouTube, and TikTok is going crazy. So
TikTok's over 1 million at this point.
And we're getting close to 3 million total. I don't know. It's kind of taken a life of its own. I'm just leaving it alone and doing what my daughter tells me. She's the one that started it.
It's so funny. I mean, I saw you for the first time last year, actually.
Okay.
And I followed you, and I went back to it and noticed he's in Lakeland. And I didn't know that when I followed you initially. And I was like, what?
You know, it's amazing how many people we get that drive, that find out that we're this close. And now, for me, an hour and a half drive, 2 hours, is kind of a long ways. But they're like, oh, we didn't realize you were this close. And they'll drive now.
That's like traffic in Orlando from one end to the other. So
yeah,
for some people.
Exactly. They're coming. I've had them come from Jacksonville. I've had them come from Miami. They're on their way to a concert in Tampa, so they put us on the stop on the way there. And for me, it's like, I'm grateful. It's like, wow, you know? I mean, I don't feel like, you know, they're privileged. I'm the one that feels privileged that they take the time of the day out to think I'm somebody that's worth to stop by their store and talk to. So it's humbling.
Your daughter has been instrumental in all things social media for you, getting you on YouTube. You know, it's 5 generations. Essentially, she's helping you with marketing. And so tell us a little bit about that. This is a family business and the things that kind of got you going into that, because I know in the past you had also done kind of your traditional marketing and media through advertising and newspapers, and that just took off like crazy too. So tell us a little bit about that journey in your marketing side, because we're really into the insights from the icons in this podcast.
Oh, so you want me to talk about before
social media? And
then
then go into the present? Like, what did you do and how did you do it? Because I think our listeners are super curious.
Yeah, well, I tell you what's important. When I took this over around 1986, I got married in 1987. In 1986, I actually joined this little network business, you know, that was out there that a lot of people were joining, and I didn't realize when I joined this, I didn't want to sell the products they were selling. I was into the, the inspiration. They had speakers that were just so motivating and very inspirational. So I was really into it for that. And I realized with this big company actually that I was doing stuff with, that it's very important to be involved in networking and being part of a group and going to their yearly functions. And I'm like, I should incorporate that into the shoe repair industry. And that's when I found out that they do have annual shows. There's the Shoe Service Institute of America. And heck, I'm going to get involved because in 1990, they had a show in Tampa. And so that was my first show I went to in 1990. And there's all these cobblers from all over the country and all these vendors, and they had seminars, and I'm taking all these seminars, and I'm like some great speakers, and I'm just like, wow, this is incredible. This is kind of like that little soap business I jumped into with some people, and this is great. This is perfect. It's just where I want to be. So I started attending the shows pretty much just about every year. And then later on, I ended up becoming the Shoe Service Institute of America's the president of the association. I just came off a couple years ago. I was president 3 years on there, but I was on the board for about 20. So I kind of worked my way up the chain there in the industry to try to be someone that gives back, because I learned so much from the leaders before me. And for me, it felt like, okay, it's time for me to give back, because these people for the 20 years before me taught me so much. Marketing. I still have a friend we'll talk to. She's up in New York, and one of the first seminars I ever attended was marketing on a shoestring, how to market your business with no money.
Literally from a cobbler's perspective.
Yeah, exactly. And, we're very good friends to this day. And then I took another seminar with a gentleman that's no longer here, but an amazing craftsman. And we have this big contest every year called the Grand Silver Cup. And we won it in 2002. And then one of the judges, he was like my idol as far as craftsmanship goes, asked me to come on and be a judge with him. So I've been the head judge for quite a while now, but it's just been that time for me, probably the last 10, 15 years or so, that now I've just been giving back to some of the younger generations in the business. But the one thing about our trade, our industry, at the height of the industry around the Great Depression, 1928, there was about 120,000 shoe repair shops. And today there's about 3,000 left. That's it in the whole United States. So not many. And it's not what a lot of people say, oh, it's cheap shoes that are driving out. No. I mean, you got around 350 million people in this country. Just say 1 million people buy good shoes. Just 1 million out of the 350. That's a very low percentage. But the average person has 5 to 10 pairs of shoes. Okay, so now we're talking, 10 million shoes. It's only 3,000 shops. The reason why the shops have dwindled is nobody's learning the craft. Nobody's learning the trade. I mean, I grew up in it. People back during my dad's generation, a lot of them had 5, 6 kids. The kids grew up in the shops. You always had somebody that stuck around. I know lots of brothers that were in the trade, 2, 3 of them, and big family businesses, but they've all faded away, and there's just nobody learning the trade. I had my 3 kids. I didn't let them come back here and get with knives and cut themselves, and I wanted them to. I got dropped off the school bus every day after school, and I had to go to the shoe shop the rest of the day. I didn't want my kids to have to do that. I wanted to go home, be able to play, have some fun after school. So,
but they did. They did get involved in their
They
own
did.
way, right? That's where you're going, right?
I didn't expect it. My son, for instance, he came in here maybe the first week after he graduated from UCF, not quite a year ago, and he was upset. And I'm like, what's wrong? And he's like, I didn't just go to college to spend, 5 years and all this money to be sitting in a shoe repair shop. And that really hit me because I was like, oh, man. I sat down next to him and I put my arm around him and I said, I know how you feel. And I'm not just saying that. I did not want to be in this shop either. I didn't. But I've got good news for you. He said, what now? Now, during college, he worked at Chick-fil-A and he learned, they have good customer service there. And I said, I don't know what you want to do yet, and I'm sure you haven't found anything you want to do yet, but just consider this to be just a pit stop until you find where you want to go, because you're at home. You don't have any bills. Just come up here, help me out with some questions. I'll pay you, and we'll just kind of go from there. And as soon as an opportunity comes up, go grab it. So just look at this as some downtime to find the right opportunity for you. He started chipping up a little bit. And after a couple of days, all of a sudden, he's realizing we've got all these social media questions coming in from all the platforms. And I was working 6 hours a day just on answering questions, either working 8 hours here. It's crazy. So he's getting into that. And then we got into another project in our business and ends up building out the website, and he's just taking care of the shipping, receiving, customer service online, customer interaction. He can answer just about every question now that a shoe cobbler could answer. He just doesn't come back here and work on it, but he knows the right answers. And he's doing a great job. And then my daughter came in one day before we had a social media account, and she goes, let's start a TikTok channel. Let's just shoot one just for fun and see what happens. Now, she's been shooting her own for quite a while. She worked at Universal and she worked at Harry Potter Land or whatever it is. And she'd show kids how to use their wands and stuff. And so she'd do little, tutorials or whatever on her page. And, she'd get 50,000 views or whatever. And I think, wow, that's pretty cool. And so she shoots just a basic video of me putting on some men's toe plates, throws it on YouTube first day, 2 million views.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm laughing looking at it like that, right? Well, she wasn't so happy.
What?
She's like, are you kidding me? Anyway, she just kept at it, and she gets the right angles. She does a great job. We see other people that will, other shops now starting to put their stuff out there, which is good. Gives shoe repair awareness out there. And she's just done a fantastic job. She's really the magic that makes it happen. She doesn't just make it a boring video. It's just the way she gets the sounds. I never knew ASMR was a thing.
Mm-hmm. It certainly is.
And she'll cut that slower. It's so you can hear the grain being cut more with the knife and cut it slower. I'm like, okay. And then you all of a sudden we get one that gets over 120 million views. And I'm just like, that's insane. And ASMR. Okay. So, and then we get, all of a sudden our business online is probably as big as what walks through the door.
Wow.
Yeah.
How did the dynamic in the household change when they realized Dad was an influencer? Basically.
It's worse for me. Yeah. Because, Dad can't collect rent, and Dad can't, Dad has to pay the cell phone bill. And nobody's really changed at all. I think we're just more grateful to have the opportunity. It's been a fun ride. I still wake up every day and say, wow, this is a lot more fun than it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. And I know that each day means something to you, especially recently you suffered a heart attack.
I did. I had, that was quite a interesting event there. That now I look back, I can see I had symptoms for going back years. It's just slowly kind of comes on, and then, I woke up on September 3rd. I woke up at 1:30 in the morning, and I'm glad I woke up. And I felt like someone hit me in the chest with a sledgehammer. You've had a cramp in your calf before, you know how painful that is. It's basically you put it in your chest. And I went 2 solid hours with that. The grace of God, I'm here. They got me to the hospital, and as soon as they took me off the gurney or whatever that's out of the ambulance and put me on the cath lab table, I thought they gave me anesthesia, but I was gone. They had to shock me back 3 times. And I remember when I like I said, I thought they gave me anesthesia, and I could hear my thoughts. I was saying, wow, they got it. Whatever they did, I feel great now. And then I was like, wow, I haven't felt this good in a long time. Wow. Yeah, it was pretty insane.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty insane. And then next thing I know, I wake up, and the nurse's face is like, 12 inches from my face. And she goes, "You better wake up." And I said, "I thought you put me to sleep." And she goes, "No." And I'm like, "Oh, okay. Well, that was interesting." So anyway, it's been a tough recovery. It's even sitting here right now, it's I've still got a ways to go. I work half days right now. Luckily, our industry is very tight-niched. A lot of your friends are in here, or family. I had, until I got the proper help back together in here, because I had one of my guys gone for about a year, and he got delayed getting back in, and I was just like, well, what am I going to do? And I had a very good friend that's a craftsman, come all the way from Stockholm, Sweden.
Wow.
Jumped on a plane. Wouldn't let me give him $1. I couldn't even pay for his plane ticket. He flies all the way over here, experienced his first hurricane that last week. He went through that. I'm sitting here, and I'm sitting on my couch at home, and I'm like, man, I'm so sorry. He ended up missing his flight home.
Welcome to Florida.
Yeah. But he came in here for 2 weeks, and he knocked out 8 weeks worth of work.
Wow.
And his name's Peter Homer, and he's got a family business in Stockholm, and Backman's Shoe Repair. And I've been there before, and it's just, even though it's on the other side of the world, we all get together at different shows in Germany and and here in the States and different places, and it's just like a family reunion every time you see each other. Then another cobbler up in North Carolina, he came down as well, and pro cobblers, Wyatt and Dad, they're on social media. They're fun to watch. Very talented. So I was very fortunate. I had 2 really, really good craftsmen come in and take up some slack to give me some time to try to get back on my feet. So it was pretty amazing.
That's incredible. And what you've gone through alone, matched with all the people that have reached out to help you, and guy coming from Sweden. How does that make you feel, after this journey so far?
I have always felt like there was something bigger than all this. I always felt like God's got me around for a reason. And I just don't think it's shoes. I really don't. We've experienced so many difficult challenges in our journey here. And to have the opportunity to be an inspiration to people that may need it, no matter what industry they're in, of all the challenges we faced. In fact, I'm meeting with somebody Monday, a ghostwriter, somebody that helps put together a book. And, kind of going in that direction, I really want to put a lot of stuff down in writing. I think it would be interesting, everything that we've seen through our lifetime. But, people day to day that struggle, and to see that, hey, it's just not, it's most people out there, whether you're a plumber, a shoe cobbler, or, working in a big, law firm somewhere. We all deal with stress, and we all have to figure out how to live with it and get through really tough times. And there's a great book I read years ago, Tough Times Never Last, but Tough People Do.
Yeah.
And that's we all need encouragement to get through this life.
You are America's cobbler. And with that, really, and you are an icon when it comes to being a cobbler. Probably, I would say, one of the most famous ones out there right now. And that, from what I'm seeing anyway. And with that comes a lot of things. Like, one of the things with this podcast is our listeners not only want to hear about, the people we're interviewing, their lives, but what makes an icon?
What makes an icon?
Yeah.
I never thought, I don't look at myself like that. For me, what makes an icon is, I want to give an example and kind of work my way up to that. I had a friend a long time ago that loved Pat Benatar, just a big Pat Benatar fan. And he had a chance to meet her at a concert, but he didn't want to meet her. He's like, no, I'm not going to meet her. I said, why not? He goes, because I just want to know her for what she is. I don't want to get to know a side that might disappoint me, which may not have been, but he didn't want to take that chance.
Yeah.
And because she's my icon.
Okay.
And I don't want to see anything negative in case there is. He goes, there may not be, but just in case there is, I just don't want to experience it because I love her so much. I just, want to leave it like it is. I'm like, okay, that's a valid point. Sometimes you'll see someone, you'll think they're your icon. And then if you get to meet them and know them, like I had one in the industry. I drove like 14 hours one time to a show to meet this person. And I got there about 8 o'clock at night, and I went into the bar area because that's where all the cobblers would meet. And I saw this person standing there talking to a few. And I was, just a peon at that time. And, we had a national magazine. This person was always on the cover. And I go up and I'm like, wow, I've always wanted to meet you. I just drove, 14 hours. I got here. I just wanted to say hi. I'm just so pumped up. I love your articles, blah, blah. And they just were like, I'm busy talking with friends right now. Why don't you, find me tomorrow and maybe we can talk a little bit. And I went and I sat in the booth there with my buddy that rode with me. And he goes, well, that didn't go like you planned. And I said to myself, if I'm ever in that situation, I am never going to be that person. And then fast forward 30 years. I think it was maybe 8 to 10 years ago. I was at a show, I think in Baltimore area. And this guy drives up. And he goes, I've seen you in the magazines. I read all and it's the same exact story. And he goes, I drove 4 hours. He drove 4 hours. I'm like, that's far. That's a long ways. And just to meet you. And I'm like, I look at my watch, and I'm like, it's like 1 o'clock. And I said, have you eaten lunch yet? And he goes, no. And I said, why don't we go grab a bite to eat?
Wow.
That's awesome.
And we go and we sit down, and he's just so happy to absorb some of my time one-on-one. And I told my wife, if this guy drove 4 hours just to talk to me, I'm going to give him my attention.
Wow.
And without anything else going on. And for me, an icon is somebody that truly cares. Now, it's hard to care about everybody because you don't have enough time, and there's so many things out there that you just can't care about everything. But at the right opportunity, I want to make sure I'm the right person, that I'm going to be the right person that's talking. When I engage with this person, I even watch myself when I'm local, not to be grumpy, because now people see, I'll go somewhere and say, hey, you're the guy on, TikTok or whatever, and I'm like, oh man, that lady just took my parking spot out there, and I was almost about to give her a dirty look, and then she comes in and she's like, saying something. I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad I wasn't mean and nasty. So I'm thinking she was all excited to meet a shoe cobbler, and I'm sitting there thinking, I still don't get it. I still don't understand. I'm just a shoe cobbler. I'm not Elvis Presley or somebody like that, right? And it blows my mind that someone takes interest. So for me, an icon is somebody that gives you good leadership, business-wise, lifestyle-wise. People I just really admire. Just they give great advice. I mean, look at Denzel Washington. Mm-hmm. Tell me somebody that can sit there and say words like him. I mean, the guy's a phenomenal actor, right?
Incredible, yeah.
But to hear him speak, and it's coming from his soul. I mean, his words are real. And that is somebody right there for me. That's somebody I look up to. For me, that's an icon. Mm-hmm. It's not somebody that is great at a sport, but he's going out and they're partying all the time and they're living life hard. And I don't want to be, I don't want to be like that. I don't want to follow somebody like that. I want to follow somebody that does a great job on the job and does a great job off the job. Mm-hmm. That's just well-rounded in every way. Those are the people you want to look for as an icon.
Yeah, well, I think you have summed that up beautifully, and I fully agree with David that you are an icon for sure. And just by meeting you for a short period of time here, by the things you've said, by the following you've been able to create based on your personality, your craft, and what you enjoy doing every single day, that's 100% an icon for sure. So,
well, thank you. That's kind.
Yeah,
thank you.
Absolutely. It's been an absolute pleasure to have us here in your amazing shop, and I've learned so many new things today I didn't know, and I'm glad that we live in this city, same as you. I'm excited. I probably bring you some shoes here soon too.
I know I will. Absolutely.
Hey, you know what makes a great podcast? When time flies and it feels like it's only been 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Because that really went by fast.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome, and thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely.